The first use case you think about blockchain is payments, right? So that's the first thing you want to do, is show that you can secure a payment mechanism, just like Visa, MasterCard, but much more secure, without middlemen, take away the fees, offers economies of scale. So the more people use it, the cheaper it gets. The way we view the future of value in the long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years, we view layer 1 blockchains will essentially become like the new republics. These will be the new mechanisms where all the value is going to proliferate to. In the future, there will be the layer 1 blockchain, there will be the mining market, there'll be the dApps, and there'll be tokens. So the lower you get in the stack, the lower risk you have, but the lower rewards. The highest risk reward will be on the layer 1 blockchain, because that's where all the value will flow up. But it's highest value, highest risk. We view layer 1 blockchains, which is Bitcoin, Syscoin, Ethereum, as court systems. They need to be combative to the external forces that we don't control, even in the software world. In the real world, like inflation, hyperinflation, wars, these systems need to be secure from that. And this is why we view Bitcoin as the gold standard for security and decentralization. What else does the world need? What else does the world cherish when you have something like Bitcoin? How can we extend that to something else where we can take advantage to build real world utility? This is where Ethereum comes in. For me, Ethereum is a gold standard for flexibility or general computation. We're trying to stick to the gold standards we know the world's going to cherish and develop on, and we put those two concepts together. And this is what Syscoin is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For those that are not familiar, I am
that Hotep Jesus dude. That Hotep Jesus dude.
Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, hit the subscribe button right now. Let's beat the YouTube algorithm. First of all, that is not Uncle Hotep. So let me take that off. That is not Uncle Hotep on your screen. Okay, here we go. Shout out to Men of Honor. God damn it. Men of Order, our masculinity sponsor. And shout out to Syscoin, our crypto sponsor. If you guys are aware, I'm taking positions on Syscoin in this wonderful bear market. Bitcoin just dropped below $1 trillion in market cap. Or was it cryptocurrency as a whole? I want to say cryptocurrency as a whole has dropped below $1 trillion for the first time in a long time. I want to say, don't quote me on that. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong. Anyway, without further ado, we have a wonderful discussion with a very intelligent brother coming up. He's going to be a superstar. He's already a star in the making. Jeff Charles, what's up, man? How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good. I mean, any day I'm on Hotep, I'm doing well.
Nah, you brought up something that I thought was quite intriguing. Or you responded to it, right? You responded to this tweet that came up. I'm going to put it on the screen just now. And thank you for coming on the platform. I appreciate for accommodating. Anybody not aware, I hit him like last minute, like, yo, you want to come on the show? I can be ready in 30 minutes. He was like, look, holla at me after 6 and we could do it. And I'm like, I love it. So I'm glad he was able to accommodate me and schedule. It was such short notice. I appreciate that. So this comes from a troublemaker.
He does stir the pot. Yeah.
He loves to stir the pot, Mr. Barrington Martin II. He said, what's the difference between the messages of these two?
I think we...
What's that? Did you freeze? Jeff Charles, are you frozen? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was. Okay. Now it's good.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, wonderful. So he says, what's the difference between the messages of these two? Serious question. RT for exposure. I want to see something. So this is one of the first tweets I saw today, and Jeff Charles, against his better judgment, said, I wasn't going to respond to this, but I guess I'll bite. He says it's simple. Black power historically means empowering the black community and ensuring equality. White power historically meant white supremacy and ensuring white dominance over everyone else. Interesting. And you got some pushback from some people on this, right?
I always do.
Somebody said there was a time when that was mostly true. That ship has sailed a long time ago. I don't know about that one. Somebody said you can't just provide accurate historical context on here. They don't like that. He says, I don't follow him, but does he ever talk about anything but race related stuff? Um, I always find that funny. Like, when you talk about this stuff, like many people on the right get a little, squishy in their pants.
Yeah. Yeah, Barrington, most of what he talks about is race related, but he talks about other stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does. He's heavy on the race, but granted historically, but what about today? I'm trying to see what the common consensus here is amongst the naysayers. Double standards are hypocritical. Telling one group that they can do something while another group that they can't is the foundation of injustice. What? Okay, maybe. Depending on who the judge is in that injustice, right? Fight fire with water, not fire. All right, this is definitely a small brain take here.
There's a lot of them.
What do you think the pushback is coming from with the response like that?
I think it's because they don't really understand the history. They don't understand what they're talking about. Like, I think that they're applying a lot of what is going on today to the term Black Power. And, and I said in my other tweet, too, that, I don't agree with everything that people who say Black Power believe. But in my experience, I mean, when I was a kid, I lived in LA, and the places where I went, especially where I went to school, was very Afrocentric. Like, brothers were into dashikis, the kufi, all that. I mean, when the Malcolm X movie came out, people had the cap on with X. So I used to hear Black Power all the time. I mean, it was very Afrocentric, like Nation of Islam selling bean pies on the street.
He's talking about 20th century Hotepism. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when they would say things like Black Power, what they meant and what the discussion revolved around was, closing the disparities, the racial disparities. It was about empowering Black people to not necessarily to make them better than white people or to rule over white people, but it was more about equality. Today, I think it's gotten a little bit muddied, but based on the people I've talked to, the discussions I've seen, for the most part, that's still what it means. But I think a lot of other stuff got mixed into it. And I know that there are Black supremacists who exist. There's like 5 of them. But typically, overall, when I see the term Black Power, that's what it means. When I contrast that to white power, it's not the same thing. I think it was Black Mountain Hotep who responded and said, I've never seen somebody say white power and then go out and start feeding their communities, trying to empower people. It's usually about dominance. When I moved out to Rancho Cucamonga in 8th grade, the neighboring city, Fontana, had a lot of skinheads. And they would say, white power, but they meant something a lot different. They weren't talking about equality. They were talking about making sure that the white race or ethnicity remains predominant. So that's why I gave the answer that I gave. I know it can be different depending on people's answers, but I would say responses like that, it's ignorance. They don't know the history. They don't even know what Black Power means. So that's kind of how I would approach that.
First of all, you really irking me when you use this term equality. So, before I lose my shit, tell me what you mean by equality.
Well, I'm talking about more about what they mean, not necessarily what I mean. But
you're just using the verbiage of the left. That's what they claim it to be. Equality.
Yeah, I'm just explaining where they're coming from. Yeah.
And when I read your tweet explaining this thing, that's what I got. I'm like, I don't know how much of this is Jeff's own opinion as opposed to Jeff explaining the political spectrum, the racial spectrum, right? That's pretty much what's happening here.
Yeah. I'm basically explaining where these people are coming from when they say Black Power, white power, what have you.
So let me start some shit up. I think they're the same. And I think they're the same because they come from the same roots.
Okay.
And the roots are scarcity. You see, when people have abundance, they tend not to care You see that now with the limousine liberals, right? They're really not too
Sure.
much concerned with other people because they have a lot, right? And the thing we're dealing with is the roots of white power comes from a lack of something, right?
Right.
For example, when we look at the South, Sonny Johnson, shout out Sonny Johnson, she's in the audience. She talks about Reconstruction all the time.
Right.
White folks wasn't doing too good. Then you got the North coming down, giving away free stuff to black folks. And I don't think they took too kindly with these concessions that were made to former slaves, et cetera, et cetera. And equality, because they were promised a dream of being superior to the races of Irish, Italian, Black, Jew, et cetera, et cetera. And his dream was sort of shattered. But I think it comes back to the fact that even black power comes from a place of scarcity, lack thereof. We don't have to go into what the black community lacks. We all know what the black community lacks and has lacked for over a century now, or I would actually say maybe less than a century, because we were doing pretty good at one point in comparison. In different aspects, right? In different ways of life. I think culturally, et cetera, we're doing much better. But yeah, so I see them as being the same. You know, even when we look at black power, right? Black power to me is black supremacy, right? Like, and you're talking about somebody who came from that sort of thinking where the white man is inferior and I got melanin in my blood and the white man can't survive in the sun and this is my planet and we the original man, right?
Yep.
So this black supremacy is very similar to white supremacy. I think the only difference is how they have manifested. And I can venture and say that white supremacy in the form of things like white nationalist groups that we might see coming out of the jail systems. If we go back in the day, KKK, and even those I think are rooted in jealousy and envy. Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that came down
and
to
fear
the fact
too.
That, well, fear. Yeah. But competition mostly. Right. I don't think these people wanted to compete with black merchants. I don't think they wanted to compete with black men in the sexual marketplace. I believe that racism in America begins with competing in the sexual marketplace. I think when Cletus, yes, before money is in the picture, when Cletus had to watch his girlfriend make out with Tyrone, oh, he went straight home and got the rope.
Yeah, that they didn't like something in the wood pile, you know.
I think that's a large part of the conversation that people don't talk about. People talk about the economics of the hate, but I believe it was when he saw Susie dancing on that dance floor and he couldn't put on those same moves, or he wasn't, his libido wasn't as long, his phallus wasn't as long. You know, he said, you know what, I got to put a stop to it. Did so through legislation, like we saw in South Carolina when they installed the black codes. So I think it's a combination of not only the economic marketplace, but also the sexual marketplace. What do you think about some of those thoughts I just expressed?
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect to be discussing phalluses, but that's okay. No, I think you're onto something there. I mean, I think that was probably part of it. I mean, why did Emmett Till get killed? You know, I think that was part of it as well. Going back to scarcity, though, I agree with that. I think the scarcity was different for black people back when black power became a thing than it was for white people. But you're right. I mean, you don't see a lot of rich white people saying white power, right? It's usually people who lack something or they're afraid of lacking something. So I do think that's the case. I think that, you know, when you talk about white power, I think it was a response to the fact that, oh, things are getting integrated now. Oh, there's Black Wall Streets all over the place, and we don't want to have to compete with that. We don't want to have to deal with that. So I agree with that there. It's just whenever I hear them talk about it, it's always about remaining predominant. Kind of like you said, they were promised that they would be dominant to other races. When it comes to black power, I agree with you there too, because when you're talking about, oh, we were kings or melanin and all that, I heard all that when I was a kid. So that is definitely a huge element of it. But I do think that there are others, when they use that term, they're not talking about being supreme. I think you got a mix of both, because I've heard both. So but I do think that they do have common roots when it comes to scarcity and being afraid of not being able to compete and not being able to have the position that people want to have. Really, it is I hate to use the word struggle, but like a struggle to gain and maintain a certain position.
You know, I think it was six goddess that put this in my mind, and I hope it was her if I'm quoting her. But she basically said, you know, white men can't compete with black men in the bed, and black men can't compete with white men at the bank.
Ooh.
So, you know, a black man can be used for the short term, for the night, but the white man is ultimately more desirable in the long term because he's allegedly at the top of the power structure, which is, you know, neither here nor there. Just a thought I had. I just want to put in people's minds, let them argue about that in the chat.
You know, I want to comment on that.
Okay.
And I think you had mentioned that you're going through the autobiography of Malcolm X. And
I read that already.
Yeah. I'm like maybe like 3/4 of the way through it, but his life kind of speaks to that, right? I mean, he had that white girlfriend that was really into him, but she was with a white guy. She was married to him. She wasn't trying to marry Malcolm X. I don't know if he would even been trying to marry her, but he was useful to her for that night. I mean, I know it was an ongoing relationship, but still, I don't think that she saw him as anything other than that. But as far as who she chose to betroth herself to, that was the bank. So I think that there's a lot of truth to what you're saying.
And you know, when I think about white supremacy, you know, I believe that the people who uphold white supremacy the most are black people. For example, Malcolm X, in his book, when he was talking about dating that white girl, he had social currency.
Yeah.
Because he was dating a white girl. His status in the community rose amongst black folks because they said, damn, you pulled a white girl? You different.
Yeah, I can't say you're wrong, because that is he very clearly says that in his autobiography. It raised his level a bit. And that is interesting when you talk about white supremacy and how that because usually when you think of contributing to white supremacy, you think about other ways. But in a sense, that is reaffirming that I am better than you because I'm with the white person. It is a white person who determines what level I'm at or not.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's deeply rooted within our culture.
It's sad.
It is. It is. But also, you know, life is a game. So, you know, you can use these things to your advantage. Right.
Right.
So, you know, Sunny talked about that. Ask her about her Steve Bannon story. She'll tell you, which I found interesting. She shared it at HotepCon, and what happens at HotepCon stays at HotepCon, so I'm not at liberty to say. But ask her about her Bannon story and what she said about, you know, how he contributes to her success and the type of people that he is and is around contribute to her success. Very, very interesting. So yeah, you know, when I think about, you know, we just went through a pandemic, right? And we had on one side, we had, you know, your white doctors, right? And on the other side, extreme, you got Dr. Sebi, right? Black folks was questioning Dr. Sebi. They wasn't questioning Pfizer or Moderna.
I was going to bring that up.
Right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring up that exact example, but I think I've heard you talk about it, and I've talked about it too. Black people, they will listen to a white man in authority before they listen to a black man in authority. And we don't even know that we're doing it. Like, to me, it's like, if the black man makes a good argument, he makes a good argument. If the white guy makes a good argument, they make a good argument. But I think subconsciously, we do ascribe more credibility to people who lack melanin.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to say that, you know, people shouldn't listen to a white person,
right.
But his color shouldn't even come into the equation.
Correct.
Listen to what the words that are coming out of his mouth. If the black man's right, the black man's right. Or maybe they're both right. Who knows? But I have noticed that we do that.
Yeah, we'll get the super chats at the end. I appreciate everybody that sends a super chat. You are definitely appreciated. Support the channel, support the channel, support the channel. Don't be a grifter. But yeah, that is I find quite intriguing is the fact that we uphold these institutions. So when we think about differences between black power and white power, okay, people will say that the white power wants to dominate the earth, right? Wants to be the superior race. I guess this falls in line with maybe Hitler's philosophy, potentially. So I won't argue that. I think that is true and that does exist. However, I think there's a bigger power at play. And Dr. Khamenei says power is being able to dictate what is reality. Right? So when I think of these white power groups today, and then I think about the true white power groups that are in power, are they really a threat, these small white power groups? Because to me it's just like, Cletus with his pickup truck and da 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 da. But the real white threat, is a Democrat, is a liberal, is a socialist, is a communist, and has been in the Western world since the late 19th century, early 19th century. This communist threat has been coming about and causing havoc across the planet. And I believe that this communist threat is the same one that manifested racism, because communism thrives off of division. And we see it here today, where even with Biden's speech, divisive, right? And this is the same guy, we know his racist history, but now we're supposed to, if we don't vote for him, we ain't black, right? Yep. So that ability to dictate reality, I find, is way more threat. So we spend so much time worrying about these white nationalist groups, and I'm like, that ain't the problem. What used to happen was the same people who held these ideologies held court, held Congress, held precinct seats, right? These were the chief of police, et cetera, et cetera. And we have pockets of that still existing today. I'm sure we can find some neo-Nazis in the New Jersey State Police Department. I know that for sure. However, these racists have gotten smart. They've shed that white power exterior, put on the sheep's clothing. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and now operate from the seats of Congress. Would you say I'm kind of on point with that, or?
I would say I agree 100%. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I was hesitant to respond, because I haven't responded to it, but I got a response saying, well, you can't, talk, it doesn't make sense to talk about this when it's not a big deal, but then you're making it sound like it's a big deal. No, I'm not saying I feel threatened by people who say white power. I don't care. Like, they're not going to affect my life. They have no power to affect my life. Yes. I am 1000% more afraid of Elizabeth Warren and Biden than I am of Richard Spencer and David Duke.
Yes.
Because we know who those people are. They're few and far in between. They can go and stay wherever they want to, as long as they're not bothering me. But Elizabeth Warren, who doesn't want school choice, Biden, you already know his history. He's the president of the freaking United States. And they're pushing an ideology that is designed to divide, like you said, and to destroy everything, and so that they can build it back up in their image. And when it comes to black people, their policies have a disproportionately negative impact on black people. I think that's by design, because they need an underclass. I mean, speaking of Sonny Johnson, what does she always say? If they want to be the party of the poor, they got to keep you poor. So when I responded to that, I wasn't trying to make it sound like, neo-Nazis are some dire threat. But that even brings me to another point, because when you talk about black people upholding white supremacy, if you look at a lot of these high-profile black people in the media or in the government, who do they usually focus on? They focus on these people, like the guy who went to New York and shot up that grocery store. They want to present that as a dire threat to Black America, and that's what they focus on. But they're really covering for the white progressives who are actually doing serious damage to the black community. So yeah, I'm not afraid of David Duke. You can go kick rocks. I'm worried about the especially white progressive women. There is nothing more terrifying.
National security threat.
Yes.
You know, you touched on something that I noticed a while ago is the black progressive, or the black liberal, black Democrat, whatever they call themselves. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because they have the closest proximity to whiteness, white power, right? We're talking about white power, but they have the closest proximity to the white power structure, but claim that white power is terrible, yet they benefit from it the most. They dictate pretty much public policy as far as it's concerned on the internet. They dictate public policy. They dictate the groupthink for black folks. Now, on the streets, it's a completely different story. On the streets, you know, niggas is capitalists. We just want to get our shmoney and leave us alone, right? In the streets, I would say we're probably more libertarian than anything else.
I believe that, yeah.
But amongst the intelligentsia of the black folks, our representation is pretty much entirely black progressive. But they've been given those seats by Huffington Post, by Washington Post, by NBC, by CNN. So if whiteness is so bad, how did you get your spot, sir? And why do you continue to have your spot at this media outlet if whiteness is so bad?
Well, I mean, it's all about those tap dancing shoes. I mean, everything that they accuse black conservatives of doing, they're doing themselves. They always talk about, oh, black conservatives are tap dancers for white conservatives. And there are areas where that's deserved, but I'll just say it. I mean, it's the Joy Reids and the Roland Martins who are also doing a tap dancing routine, and their tap dancing routine is far more dangerous to black people than anything else. I mean, like I said, in the streets, people are mostly libertarian, the capitalists. That is way out of touch with these black progressives, because a lot of them grew up around whiteness. They went to these Ivy League schools. And so they are there to protect these white progressives who have this Marxist communist ideology. And it's a cushy job. I mean, people say, oh, you know, being a black conservative is easy or whatever. Well, it's easy to be a black progressive, too, if you manage to get into that position, because all you got to do is say the right words, tap dance, distract people from what's really going on by focusing on microaggressions or focusing on, on neo-Nazis, when it's really your masters who are doing the most damage and you're helping them do it. I think some of them don't even realize it, but I know for a fact that a lot of them do. They know exactly what they're doing.
Y'all heard him call out them names. Shots fired. Oh, man. I knew Roland Martin was past the mark when he attacked King Randall.
Yeah.
Let's all right, so let's come back. So black power versus white power. Let's define. We've spent a decent amount of time. We're only going to be here for another 20 minutes or so. We've defined white power, I think, pretty well. Let's get back to black power and what black power is, and then we can talk about the differences between the two, right? So today, there is what is black power, and then what is pseudo black power, what people purport black power to be, right? Now, this also lends to the white supremacy argument. I saw a TikTok video today where a white boy went to 50 states and dated 50 different women. Did you see that video?
You know, I scrolled past it on Twitter. I didn't watch it, though.
Okay.
I know some people were mad about it, though. I don't know why.
So there were a bunch of black women. Black. I don't know how we define whatever. But they were black women.
They voted for Biden, so they're black.
Right, exactly. They had brown skin, right? And these women were upset that he didn't select a brown skinned woman out of 50 women. And he said, one of the girls said, the light brights don't count, right? You know, the light skinned girls, they don't count. So they're upset that the white man didn't select her as a mate during his dating spree. Today, that's black power. It's pseudo black power. This is what they're concerned. They're concerned about what white people think about them. And they want to be accepted. And they want to lay in bed with Zaddy.
You know,
we even see it in the movies, right? Oh, how come they ain't put us in that movie? How come they ain't put us in that commercial? How come we not on this show? We need more. Yesterday, me and Uncle Hotep had to do an episode where they had a container of Vaseline with equity on the front and black folks on it. Like we
I
wasn't.
saw that. I saw that.
This is black power today. Pseudo black power.
Which is exactly
acceptance of white folks.
Yeah, which is just promoting white supremacy, right? I mean, because you are still measuring your worth by what white people think of us.
Yes.
And I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. No shade to white people. But as black people, we should be worried about doing what we need to do instead of just worrying about what white people think of us. That's absurd. You know, it's like, you know, with that Will Smith thing when he slapped Chris Rock. Oh, he said black people back. He made us look bad. I'm sorry. If somebody saw what Will Smith did and thought, oh, this says something about black people, that's not somebody who I really want to mess with anyway. Like that, right. That's stupid. I mean, I don't like dealing with stupid people. Right. So to me, it's like, stop. The only white people you need to worry about their opinions of are your friends, people that might be in your family, people who you can do business with, people who can help you build. Yeah, care about what they think. But again, it's not because of the color of their skin, it's because of their position in your life. And we got the fact that this even came up, like, who cares if this white guy likes to date white women? I don't like Martina Marcotto was on your channel and she said that she prefers white men. Yeah. Okay. And so what?
Right.
What? I prefer black women. Okay. So, great. Fine. Yeah. It's, you know, it's, we talk so much about white supremacy, but so much of our black leaders and our high profile black people in the media, they promote it without even knowing it half the time. It's, you know, and it's, you know, I can make jokes about it, but it really is sad. It is sad to be in a position where you're basing your self-worth on what somebody who has lighter skin thinks of you. I mean, it's awful. Like, how do we move ahead if that's our mindset? I'm not saying all black people think this way, but enough do.
Well, the black social media intelligentsia. This is how they operate, right? I always like to be specific. You know, I don't like to say black people. I'm very specific when I use my language. Yeah. Black social media intelligentsia, and I have to put the quotes around that because ain't nothing intelligent about them. Because black folks don't think like that. You know, people in the hood aren't thinking about, you know, why is my face not on this Vaseline? No, they picking up the Vaseline, they going home, they want to make sure they look fresh to death. You know what I mean? They want their Gucci, they want their Prada, they want their Versace, and they don't really care about representation. They just want to be able to pay their bills and live a good life and have the finer things in life. They're ANCAPs. And I think they're courageous for being ANCAPs as well. But these social media types who have been groomed in these liberal institutions that they call universities come out with a warped perception of reality. And really what it comes down to is that there's no polarity to their studies. It's always one-sidedness. They're going to get, first of all, when we talk about the Black Panther Party, you have to understand that the people that created the Black Panther Party were in above their heads. Okay. And that's not to take nothing away from their work. I wasn't there. I don't know what they had to go through. So I can't lend to that. All I know is there was a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Right.
And when you 20, you don't know shit. Okay. You don't know shit when you're 20 years old. Okay. So we got what we got a bunch of kids running around trying to do something for the community. Now, you can learn a lot from the Black Panther parties, and there's a lot you can learn not to do when it comes to the Black Panther Party. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, you know, people like to take the Black Panther Party as being the holy grail of things. And I'm like, I wouldn't look at a 20-year-old kid and go, I need to emulate him. I'm 40 years old. There's things I understand about this game that he don't understand. So when they see the communism being carried out by the Black Panther Party, what they don't understand is that communism might work for the Black Panther Party. It might work for Brooklyn. It might work for Chicago. And it might work for only the black people in Chicago. But that shit don't work for the nation. And they fail to make that distinction and believe that, you know, communism needs to exist for the entire population. But it just doesn't work like that. Communism works best in small populations. In fact, the best
Exactly.
population of people that you need to study that practices communism is called a corporation. A corporation is a form of communism. If you go look at how that is, it's a centralization of power, and you do as you're told, and all decisions are made by the head. It's a form of communism, and it works in a corporation very well. But when you spread it to a large group of people, it doesn't. So there's a bunch of things that Black Panther Party have adopted that they shouldn't have adopted, ideologically wise. Especially when you had Russian operatives coming over and infiltrating those groups, as well as groups like Civil Rights Movement with Martin Luther King, right? Manning Johnson wrote about the infiltration of communism amongst Black movements. So, I think what happens is they also take like the stories of James Baldwin, and James Baldwin's a god, and Du Bois is a god, and oh no, we can't learn from Garvey, right? And oh no, we can't learn from Noble Drew Ali. Oh no, we can't learn from Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Kaba Kamene, Shaka Akmos. We got teachers alive today that are completely ignored in favor of people that want to push a certain narrative. And to me, that's unfair. What Black power to me is nepotism, right? And that's what white power should be. It should be nepotism. I've ranted enough.
I'm curious. What do you mean when you say that Black power and white power are nepotism? I think I know what you mean, but I want to
focus on yourself, as Nerd would say. Shout out to Nerd at the Cool Table. Focus on yourself. Like, you look inward. What can we do to make ourselves better? You see, Lauryn Hill had a battle against J. Rue the Damager. I think it was a debate. It was more of a debate against J. Rue the Damager. It's still on the internet. Type in Lauryn Hill versus J. Rue the Damager. And she said, why are we talking about this? Why don't we remove white people from the equation completely? How come every time we talk about Black power, we got to include white people in the conversation? They don't need to be inserted in the conversation. What can we do to better ourselves, to focus on ourselves and lift ourselves up? And I believe that once you insert white people into the conversation, if it is not as concerning their volunteered contribution, right? Instead of saying, oh, we need to make white people do this. No, we can open the door and say, if you would like to help, there's a door open here for you to help. But we don't exactly have to center you in the conversation.
And we don't have to beg you to be a part of it.
Right.
We don't have to cry about it. We don't have to try to shame you into doing it. I mean, before we did this, I was thinking about, so how would I define Black power just for me, myself? It's exactly what you just said. Like, we do for ourselves, like our ancestors did. I mean, there's a reason why there were so many Black Wall Streets. There could be more even now, because you don't have to worry about white people coming in with guns and bombs and all that stuff. It should be more of a we do for ourselves, and we invite whatever contribution you want to make, white America. And guess what? You brought up King Randall. Who gives him a lot of his donations?
White folks.
White conservatives. They do. There are a lot of white folks who would love to help. I mean, I talked to a guy, this was like sometime last year. His name was Joseph Caleb, Italian dude. But what he's trying to do is start the very first Black-owned stock exchange. And he's a white dude, but he wants to help. He sees an issue and he would like to help. So to me, there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, it's like, how do I want to put this? A lot of people saying that they want Black power or Black empowerment are more about empowering the Democratic Party or empowering the white progressive than they are about the Black community. It's like they center Black power on white people. Like, if it's Black power, then it has to come from us, not from white people. That doesn't make sense. White people can't give Black people Black power. They can collaborate, and I'm glad to, and I love to see it. I mean, even a lot of these everyday white progressives giving all that money to Black Lives Matter, they didn't know that it was a scam. These are legitimate people who legitimately wanted to help Black people, and they thought by writing that check to Black Lives Matter that they were helping Black people. Good. These are good people. So yeah, if you invite them, they'll do it. But you're not going to do it by begging, by calling them racist or whatever. We're building something here. You want to get in on this. You want to invest. I mean, even Joseph Caleb, who I just brought up, if this thing works, he's going to make money off it too. He start minority owned stock exchange. He'll get money off that too.
Of course.
Good.
He should.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one thing I always hear black people say is, oh, we built America. We built America. And I'm not going to challenge that. It's true. So when I see people like Dr. Umar Johnson, who tries to build without white people, I go, nigga, you just said these white folks built America without power, so you're not going to build your empire with white power, with white energy, and they're volunteering for it? That's why I think that King Randall sprinted to his goal while Dr. Umar was still walking. Because Dr. Umar lost sight of what power is. He lost sight of what capitalism is. He lost sight of his own educational degree. You see, I think what it is, a lot of people are imprisoned by their brand. And when you're imprisoned by your brand, you got to stick to what your brand is known for to keep that money coming in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if he says he's a psychologist, specifically a child psychologist, but he studies psychology, then he should know better than this white versus black paradigm. And I don't think he really believes. And if he does, I think that's sad. I also think that this whole notion of white people being the black man's sworn enemy, I think is a bit outdated now.
Yeah, I would say that too.
I you know, and a lot of this is going to go back to ancient Egypt versus Greece, right? And the transition of power from the pre-dynastic period to the dynastic period to the period of under Ptolemy, et cetera, et cetera. And that was definitely whites versus blacks to some extent, because the original Greeks was black. That's another story for another day. Do I have my book down here? I could have showed people Black Athena Volume 1 by Bernal. But yeah, you know, I don't think it's a white versus black thing. I think the white versus black thing is something created by the people in power to keep the populace from looking at them as the enemy.
But let me ask you this. I want to see what you think. It may not be white versus black, but when I look at this stuff, I do see that it's white progressive against black.
Okay. I don't see it as white progressive versus black.
Okay.
I see it as communism to rule all.
Okay. Okay.
The same systems that are in place in America are the same systems put in place in Russia, in Germany, and in the Ottoman Empire, in Poland, right? It's the same exact systems. It's the same overthrow of power. In fact, when we had power, and I'm not saying I'm saying this loosely because Muammar Gaddafi was definitely an Arab, but you see what happened when they threw the dictatorship and he brought about a republic. Libya is unrecognizable compared to what it was before. I mean, Libya under Muammar Gaddafi had a 0% unemployment rate, had a 0%, not unemployment rate, homelessness rate. There was no homeless people. In fact, it was illegal to be homeless because they would build you a house. All you had to do is come sign up. You know what I mean? So, and I think
you wiped out slavery too. Slavery returned after they got rid of them.
Correct. Right. So, no, wait, what was the question again? I just want to make sure I'm saying
white progressives against black.
I don't see it as white progressives versus black people. I see it as communism versus all people.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
You know, the people that are sitting at the top are the same people that have been sitting at the top in 16th century Europe, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and now we're in the 21st century. It's the same people at the top. Same people been controlling the crown. It's the money masters. Wu-Tang taught us cash rules everything around me. So if I control the money, I control everybody else. But the money masters is like, you know, as long as we can create division. In fact, when you had the socialist revolution in Germany, the key people at the top of the socialist movement said, yo, we have to divide the movement. We have to create two separate factions because this faction is getting too big and too powerful. So they chose one leader, backed them, and then they split that into two parties. So they'll always look to find division, because where there's division, there's chaos. And where there's chaos, there's confusion. And where there's confusion, there's no thinking. And thinking is what's going to bring about harmony and discussion, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's also a great way to hide what you're doing too. I mean, if you've got Americans at each other's throats, which is happening right now, we're all focused on the big bad Democrats. Democrats are focused on the big bad Republicans. But really, the real war is between the regular folks and the elites. But if we're at each other's throats, they can do whatever the hell they want without us knowing about it, because we're not focused on them.
Yeah, while white folks and black folks is arguing, they sitting back laughing because it's part of the plan. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with white power. There's nothing wrong with black power. In fact, white power and black power working exclusively, mutually exclusive. Isn't that the word everybody like to say? Imagine if that was to happen. That's not a part of the plan. That's not a part of the plan. Because at the very least, what they want is homogeneity. They want groupthink. They want all people alike. And that's part of the dumbing down movement. That's part of the brainwash and mass formation psychosis, et cetera, et cetera. But they want all people thinking the same. So that's why they can't get through to these other groups like the Asians. You know, you got the Indians, you got the Japanese, the Chinese. It's hard to penetrate those groups because these people actually have tradition. There's two people on this planet that got no tradition, Jeff. Two people on this planet got no tradition. Their tradition has completely been created by marketing and Hollywood. And that's white people and black people. We have no tradition. We have no culture. When you ask a Chinese man to dress up in his garb, he got an original garb.
Yeah.
Chinese, Japanese, Indian, African. Everybody's got a traditional way of dress. The way that white folks and black folks dress for formal occasions is identical.
It's the same. Yeah.
It's the same. But the white man's suit was actually a form of Puritanism, and that's purported by and taught by Thaddeus Russell over at Renegade University. You see, and he talks about how the suit came to be, and the rebellion to that came from the Filipinos that pushed out the zoot suit where it was all, flashy, and then it got to Malcolm X in the hood, and then they were mocking the tightness of the suit, et cetera, et cetera. You see what I'm saying? But we have no culture here. White folks and black folks have no culture. Our culture is Pepsi, hot dogs, and hamburgers and fireworks. So you know who really loses here? Is money power, and black power and white power are secondary to everything.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think, when you talk about white power and black power, I mean, if it's the way that you're talking about it, I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, we were talking about, black people empowering themselves, but also inviting white people to come help. Well, white people will help, especially if they get something out of it. That's white power and black power working together.
And that comes back to my previous discussion about reparations. Everybody told me white conservatives didn't like reparations. All of a sudden, I came up with Dems must pay, and I had a whole bunch of white conservatives supporting reparations.
I remember that.
So how can you say white conservatives don't support reparations, yet I was able to get them to support reparations with one single hashtag and 10 minutes of thinking? You know why? Because I understand human psychology. You know what human psychology says? Everybody operates off of self-interest.
Yep.
Everybody operates off of self-interest. Even when you do good, you operating off of self-interest. Sometimes I see somebody and I have to give them money. Poor, I have to give them money. And I don't give them money because I feel bad. I feel money because if I don't, I feel guilty.
Right.
So am I doing it for them or am I doing it for me?
Yeah, you're avoiding negative feelings. Yeah.
I don't want to have that negative feeling. So technically, underneath the surface, I'm doing it for me. So everybody operates off of self-interest. Once you understand that, you can start to wield some power in this country. You can start to negotiate with white power groups, and you can.
And I think that's why a lot of people are turned off by capitalism, because capitalism is based on that concept. People are self-interested. They want to deny human nature, so they say, "Oh no, we should be doing this because it's the right thing to do." Well, okay, it might be the right thing to do, but you're not going to get people to do it if there's not something in it. I mean, they teach you that in sales. I mean, my background is in sales. They're not going to buy from me just because they like me. They're going to buy from me because it benefits them. So I mean, we need to have a more realistic view on this, and really, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, people hated Ayn Rand for saying that same thing. I mean, with Atlas Shrugged and her other philosophy, well, they're like, oh, that sounds so selfish. Well, okay, I mean, you can be selfish and still do a hell of a lot of good in the world.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I think that might be one of the best ways. You can't take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself, right? So.
But that's what people have to understand, is self-interest is paramount to all of this. So if you operate knowing that the person that you have to live with is acting in self-interest, then you're easily to negotiate with. Oh, you're a white power group? Well, how about you sit down and let's have a talk? You know what? They don't like that. And that has happened before. I know you know about the meeting between the Nazis and the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, yeah.
If they hate black people, why was they in the same room?
Yep.
Self-interest, Jeff. Self-interest.
Yep. Even Fred Hampton did that, if I remember correctly. Like Fred Hampton met with some of those groups too.
Yes.
I mean, even I don't know if you're familiar with Daryl Davis.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, and this wasn't really based on capitalism. This was just based more on him trying to understand something. But even they were willing to sit down with him and talk to him. Now, I wouldn't have done it, but
Garvey did it. Garvey was like, oh, KKK, these are the people you're afraid of? Hey, yo, come over here. Let's talk. Let's have a discussion. Mm-hmm. And they came to agreements. You know why?
Yeah.
Because human nature is about self-preservation and self-interest. So if I know, hey, what do you need? You just want some more gas? All right, yo, get these fools some gas. Here's what we want. We're going to make sure y'all good on gas. We're going to make sure our women ain't messing with your women. And in exchange, you leave us the hell alone. If not, we're going to have to bust heads.
Right.
It's that simple, man.
Right.
This stuff could be so simple. But you know what, Jeff? And we saw this happen recently. I saw a video go viral. I think it was on Tucker. But the kid wanted to go to a MAGA rally and document how or his experience at a MAGA rally.
Right.
Did you see that?
I didn't see that, no.
Okay. So he goes and he's like shocked. He's like, these people were accepting and they were nice and they wanted to find common ground with us. And one of them invited to him Bible study and he was completely shocked. White liberal kid, right?
Right.
But that's what they don't want. They have to do a very good job of keeping us from talking to each other.
Exactly. You know, that reminds me, you're familiar with Hawk Newsome, right?
Yeah.
So there was a video and, it got a decent amount of play, but this was back in 2017, 2018. He's with his Black Lives Matter group and there's a free speech rally pro-Trump. And him and his group, about maybe 10, 20 people. And they had their signs because they had been protesting at a different event. But they walked by this one and they held up their signs and, they're getting booed by the crowd. But then the person who was on the stage invited him up to speak. He invited a Black Lives Matter leader up to speak at essentially a Trump rally. And he says, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of our platform to get your message out because we believe in free speech. So Hawk Newsome takes the mic and he played it perfectly because the first thing he said is, I am an American. He got huge applause. And then he started kind of going through the issues that he has. And at some points that they were booing him. But when he said stuff like, if you have a bad plumber, you fire him. If you have a bad police officer, you fire him. He got a lot of cheers from that. He said, I'm not trying to get anything that you have. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I just want to, I can't remember what he said, but by the end of that event, they were giving him a standing ovation. They wanted to take pictures with him afterwards. So he took pictures with Bikers for Trump. One of them, he even held one of the kids. And he was being interviewed afterwards, and he was like, this was a really good experience. I feel like that we came to an understanding. You're right. That is exactly what they don't want. And do you know how much flack Hawk Newsome got for doing that? Yeah. And I've been critical of him too. I don't agree with everything he says, but he got flack from the left for even daring to get up and talk to some Trump supporters.
How dare
You're right.
you?
They don't want, how the unmitigated gall. Like, they were mad.
Imagine if the roles are reversed and you walked into a liberal crowd with a MAGA hat. You think they'd have gave you 5 minutes on stage? You probably wouldn't have made it out the crowd.
They'd give you 5 minutes to get the hell out of there.
Facts. And you would have got your ass beat.
Yep. So
when we talk about, the differences between the two sides, the differences to start. Sonny Johnson says she's been waiting years for a conversation like this to happen. I hope we met your expectations. When I saw the topic hit my timeline, Sonny, I was like, this needs to be talked about. This is a very important discussion. I wanted to have it immediately. And that's why I invited Jeff
important.
and there can even be a part 2 to this. Like, we can go on. There's so much
I would
to
love
discuss. Let me get to the super chats, and then we're going to let Jeff go. Chad Lemoyne, he said, people have taken the idea of power from the people who want to keep them weak and needy. The opposite of power isn't virtue, it's powerlessness. Bars. Coach EO with the $100 super chat says, salute the Hotep Nation. That's a big boy super chat. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Young men, if you wanna start any place in the manosphere, I'm connected to a lot of great guys. Savo, Rolo, Donovan Sharp, those are my homies. But if you want to start anywhere, you got to start with the smoothest man in the manosphere. And Jap too. Jap know he my homie. I'm a mod on Jap's channel. Jap's the man. I fucks with Jap. But Coach EO is the smoothest thing out here. I'll be watching his videos, taking notes and shit. You know what I'm saying? Coach EO is the only dude in the manosphere I can actually sit down. Well, I can watch Jap. I can watch Jap. I can watch Donovan. But EO is like, he got to be black in a past life. I don't know what it is. But young men, before you start any, because I think Rolo, Donovan, Fresh and Fit, and Jap, I think that's like, sophomore year of getting into the manosphere. Like, you don't jump right into those courses right away. You know what I'm saying? You need the good groundwork. And I think that for all freshmen, you got to start with Coach EO. He got to give you that groundwork that he got. What's he called his Killing the Simp. Killing the Simp is a series. You got to watch Killing the Simp. Champion game. He gonna give you that champion game. And then you can go get the nuances from Jap and those other guys and those more advanced courses. But if you ain't got what EO giving you, you're not ready to go to them other guys yet. You're going to be all lost in the sauce if you don't start with EO. So Coach EO he gets my cosign. Art Dog, you said the white nationalist power rhetoric is a distraction. It diverts our attention to the real threat, which is Marxist communists that are elites of all races. Exactly. That's what people don't get. And I did the histories. It's in my book, Unmasking the Conspiracy of Money and War, the Patriot Report. I show you who was controlling the crown. Y'all think it's white people that this whole thing is about white supremacy? No, it's about money supremacy, and I show you how the world works in my book. Jabari Judy said, tell Uncle Hotep, HJ, you got a good replacement if he acts up. Just kidding. Great talk with stand-up guy. Oh, Steph Colonel, shout out to Uncle Hotep. I think there should be a part 2 to this conversation with the white nationalist or someone white who subscribes to the ideology or rhetoric.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
Not a bad idea. Just a Chick said, respect and support your way. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate you. Sonny says she coming through for part 2 if invited. Oh, Sonny, please.
Oh,
please.
okay.
It ain't a party until you show up. Absolutely, Sonny. So yeah, we're gonna do a part 2 of this. In fact, let's go ahead and just make that commitment. We're gonna do a part 2, and we're gonna have Sonny, and then if we can get Nick Fuentes or somebody in here. Who, I don't know who's a white supremacist these days. And let's have a good old time. Let's talk. Because that's what they don't want us to do. Closing thoughts, Jeff.
I guess what I would say, and I've been talking a lot about this, but, we have to figure out how to get past these divisions, because while we're divided, while we're at each other's throats, the real bad guys are doing some shit. I pay attention to it because I'm in the media, but we need to expose this stuff. But it's not going to matter if we're so emotionally charged against one another that we think that the white man's the enemy, the Democrat's the enemy. Some of them might be, but to me, like you said, Hotep, I mean, it's the communists that are the enemy, the elites, the ones that are pushing the stuff, black, white, or otherwise. So we have to figure out we have to somehow, I don't have all the answers, but we have to figure out how to calm this stuff down so that we can actually have these conversations and then target the real enemy.
Yeah, I concur. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another wonderful, sharp conversation with yours truly, Hotep Jesus. Hit the subscribe button if you are not already subscribed. You're missing some of the best conversations, the best thoughts on the internet. You're not going to see this stuff anywhere else. I am Hotep Jesus. Thank you for tuning in. And Hotep and Bill. You hear a lot of people say this, and I totally agree with it. They say, fail fast. And it's so true. But it also ties into the procrastination conversation. What is procrastination? Procrastination is nothing more than the delay of the gifts that God is ready to present us with. And we're saying, no, we're not ready for those. How about tomorrow? Because when you're on your path, you're doing what you need to do, you tend to be in alignment and the gifts come abundantly. So that's why sometimes we say, hey, fail fast, because if you started the project last Monday, you would have found out that the piece that is missing takes a week to come in the mail, and now your whole project's been pushed back a week. You can't even start. But if you started on Monday, you knew, oh, I'm missing this piece, so it'll be here next Monday, and now you can begin working on your project. Fail fast ties into procrastination very quickly. Also, you have a lot of people that are afraid to fail. They're afraid to make mistakes. But you have to make mistakes. You have to fail. That's the only way you learn. That's the only way you gain experience. So I want people to fail. I want people to mess up. Don't be afraid of messing up. A lot of people want perfection straight out the gate. You start a podcast or a show, and the first one, they want it to be perfect straight out the gate. That's not possible. Just go. Done is better than perfect. Fail fast.